Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday. Yeah. Yes, bring that music up. Yes. I love that song. We got to put lyrics to that song as well. I'm saying it would be great. And then have to find the person who wrote it. Okay. No. Anyway, I am so glad to be here on the Cindy Cochran Show because it's Tuesday to begin with. And that I'm here. My name was not in the obituary, so I really am glad to be here, breathing in and out regularly. And I'm excited because we're going to look back today. Look back to the 60s. And many of you go like, you can't look back to the 60s. I was born in the 80s or the 70s or surely there's someone out there that remembers the 60s for real, not just because you watched all the old movies or watch the sitcoms that you're still playing, or that you just you have someone who's right there that's told you all about the 60s and you're sick of hearing about it. But this is about if you really lived through the 60s, if you really did that. How many of you out there remember this? And I know of one person, and that person is Dennis O'Connor, the voice of the Cindy Cochran Show. And you know, I guess Mark Hader would be the other one that would probably remember. I'm about a year older than Mark and about 2 years older than Dennis. But he remembers. He remembers the 60s. And what I didn't realize as I was going back and looking at montages and all that of how much stuff happened from 60 to 70. That decade right there, so many impactful historical things that happened that changed the course of things during that time. I was so amazed that got to live through it. I would remember listening to my father-in-law, who lived to be 100 and almost 101, and his mind was just sharp as a tack. He was a history teacher and he was a principal, but he would talk about what happened back then and back when. And you think, well, maybe that's kind of skewed because of how old he was. But it wasn't. It was exactly how things, when you look historically, that they happened. And it was fascinating to listen to. He saw the first airplane, the first car, the first, things that were the first and that we took for granted in, of course, our day. And like the kids now take for granted all the Xbox, the phones, and the iPads and all that stuff that is like no big deal and it's just second nature to them. But for us, it was a big deal, the things that we saw. And I can remember in the 60s, the early 60s, I was sitting on the curb. That's what kids used to do. They sit on curbs and talk the day out and talk about things. And I grew up in the East End. It was a poor side of town. I had no idea that we would be considered in a poor neighborhood. I never knew that ever. I thought we were middle class. Somebody said middle class and was talking about someone else, and I didn't realize they were so much more wealth. They had much more wealth than we did. But in that time period and not being exposed to a whole lot of stuff, you think that you're fine. I mean, we ate and we had clothes and we had a car and my dad had a job. So it was, everything was fine. We played outside all the time anyway. And that was a big leveler because you're out there in the dirt and the grass. And so I never knew all these things were, what was going on outside of our little, neighborhood. But I was about 12, I guess, when the 60s started. And I remember the Chronicle came out with an article of what was the future to be. In 20 years, what would be happening. And I remember reading this article, I was just glued to every word because it talked about being able to see the person you're talking to on the phone. And that I couldn't believe it, that there were going to be moving sidewalks and that we wouldn't have to walk everywhere. And that there was going to be a big dome that was going to be over the city of Houston. And we could control the weather. We never have to worry about it being too hot or too cold. And that man was going to go to the moon. And that, it was just weird stuff that you feel like this is going to be like in a time that I could be living in. It was really exciting. And I was trying to think how long 20 years would be. In 20 years, that's so far away. And I would be so old at that time that it was hard to comprehend the whole thing. But I loved living through all that because it was so exciting. You never knew what was going to happen. It seemed like to me, I always felt like there's a lot of angry people. I turn on the TV and you would just see certain things happening. You go like, oh wow, they're just angry all the time. And I can remember us and the kids only talking about what's affecting us and what's going on with us. But in 1960, I think it was 62, I was in class. I was in a junior high, and we went home that night. It was like Thursday night. We heard President Kennedy get on TV and talk about Khrushchev, and that Cuba has got missiles pointed this way, and that he talked about so many scary things, and he made us really feel like that this was it. If they didn't back down, that this was going to be it, and we could be in nuclear war. And I remember we had to have a bomb scare thing, where you had to go out and you go sit in the hallway and wait for the siren to blast again, and then you go back to class. We never did the thing where you got under the the seat in the classroom. You had to go out in the hall. I didn't understand that. Maybe the hall was stronger, but we were trying to prepare for an atomic bomb, and we had seen all the movies. They showed us these horrible, horrible movies, and that just made you sick and scared to death. And then when the president comes out and kind of makes it all real, like this could really happen, and that we were all hugging each other and saying goodbye, and that this was going to be it, and so scared and going home, and we lived under a lot of fear, it seemed, at that time. When I was 8 years old, I think 9, I wrote a letter to Khrushchev and Kennedy, and I wanted my mom to be sure and mail this. And the letter said, you two guys need to get it and you fight it out and not bring us into this and make us die, because we don't care what your problems are. Y'all need to work it out or fight it out, or, whoever wins, then we have to do what they say. But that's how scared, and I was just so young and being afraid of that kind of stuff and having to worry about that kind of stuff, how stupid it was, because there were so many more things that we had to think about. And then President Kennedy was shot, and my word, the world collapsed, because we thought if somebody could kill your president, they could kill. And when that happened, and the trauma of that, and everybody that is around my age can tell you exactly where they were. And we just had where you had to go out in the hallway and sit in the hallway. And then they announce over the PA that President Kennedy has been shot. They didn't say he was dead. They said he was been shot. And so later on, everybody was crying. The teachers were crying. Everybody was crying, and said he had died. So, and then we all hated Dallas, and we were so mad that it happened in Texas. It happened to Dallas. We were so angry about all that, and because now, who wants to go to Dallas? And it took a long time, it seemed like, for us to ever go to Dallas again. And the first time I did, and visited that place, and that the tower, not the tower, but the school book building where that he shot, and on the green, and the plaza there in Dallas. And it was horrible. It was just like you feel like you relive it all over again. So the 60s was tumultuous. It was very sad in a lot of places, hard for us to get over that, and that event. And then things were going on, though, like, here comes the space, the space and NASA and all the things that they said that we were going to do. And I remember sitting out on my porch and looking up at the moon and thinking, somebody's going to go to the moon. That's what they promised, that somebody's going to the moon and land on the moon and get out and walk around on the moon. And I was just so mystified. And this was still early 60s, but it seemed like we were going to be the first people on the moon. And then the craziness of, because NASA was there in Houston, and my boyfriend and I were asked to come sing at a party, and it was between a break, and this girl that had invited us to come sing brings this guy over and says, "Hey, I want you to meet Neil Armstrong." And we went, "Hi," and he goes, "Yeah, this has really been fun. I enjoyed your music, and yay." And I said, "Are you with NASA?" And he goes, "That's how smart I was. I didn't know within a few months he was going to be the one landing on the moon." But we met him, and he was very nice. And it was we just exchanged, and he started telling us that, yeah, he's an astronaut there. And I went, "You're an astronaut? Oh my goodness!" And so I didn't say, "What does that mean? What do you do?" I understood that he was. It was a big deal, and so we met, we talked, and then in June, sometime in June, I was sitting there, and they said, "Okay, Neil Armstrong is now about to step out of," and I went, "Neil, that's the guy. We talked to this guy," and so it was really exciting. So many good things, so many great things that happened, and I'm going to have Dennis O'Connor join me in the next segment to talk about music and all the crazy things that we did during the 60s and that happened during the 60s. And we'll be right back after this break. And you guys stay with us. There's so much more of the 60s to talk about. All right, guys, you're listening to the Cindy Cochran Show, which means it's always real reality radio.
The Cindy Cochran Show.
Hi, this is Cindy. Thank you for taking the time to snuggle up with a good computer and a latte grande and listen to the Cindy Cochran Show, having fun with the world's news and local happenings in your own backyard.
The Cindy Cochran Show. You ain't heard nothing yet.
And we're back on the Cindy Cochran Show. And that was my good friend Dennis O'Connor, who always does those fun little preemptive statements. So anyway, I've got him on the line now. Dennis, are you there?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay. Well, if you're kind of there, I'll take that, So that's going to be fun. Listen, we're talking about the 60s. And since you're one of the oldest people I know, that's not true. I'm older than you are. So we'll get that straight. But did you like the picture I chose to put up of you on my Facebook page? Did you see it?
No, I see it. I did not see it.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm looking at it now. Oh, yeah. That's very, very flattering.
Well, you know what? I've got you in a tux, and then I've got you in that shot. So if people want to see Dennis, it's. I mean, he looks very surprised, like, what? And we just woke him up, and maybe how he looks right now. Anyway, but if you want to go to my Facebook page, and also if you want to ask questions to Dennis, this will be funny. We'll turn it on you, Dennis, because you're the one always asking questions. If somebody wants to ask Dennis a question of and how he survived the 60s, like that's a good thing. I know you've been thinking about this because we talked last night, and what you remember about the 60s, what you enjoyed about the 60s. What?
Yeah, I thought about it a little bit.
Okay, what stood out to you in your mind?
Say what?
What stood out in your mind about the 60s? When you think of the 60s, immediately you think of something you can share with us.
I think of the end of the 60s, really, because it ended with a bang. And it ended with me in a whole different place than when I started them.
Okay. Well,
spiritually, the transformation through the 60s was a thing that I remember. I of course, the landing on the moon, that was just unbelievable. That was just beyond. I had taped every bit of it on a little cassette recorder. I think it was either a cassette or a reel-to-reel. But
yeah.
I taped everything from the takeoff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was everything that was over the air. I had taped, and of course I that doesn't fit into a backpack by the end of the
Yeah.
his 60s.
No, that's true. Did you run outside and look at the moon? After?
Oh yeah,
it landed?
I'm a big yeah. I've always been a big star watcher, stargazer. My older brother taught me stargazing and watching meteorites and stuff like that, and learning the different, you know.
It was.
So yeah. I still look up the moon, and I think of that every time I look up at the moon. I go right back to Armstrong taking that step.
That was just was amazing, and that's what I was saying. Like, I couldn't believe how it wasn't anything taken for granted. I just didn't understand the impact. I didn't understand who this guy was when he came up and we talked and all that.
Yeah,
and she said, Neil.
Yeah, Neil Armstrong. That's. I can't one up you there.
Well, it was just I'm so mad that I was so stupid, naive, and didn't understand who it was I was talking to and what questions I could ask him. But I mean, when they said, and now Neil Armstrong is going to step off the way, I went, what?
Right.
And so it was so exciting. But I'm telling you that you go out there, you look at the moon. They were selling gum at that time that was supposed to be Sputnik. It was called Sputnik gum.
Yeah.
And remember we were worried that the Russians were going to beat us to the moon.
Yeah, well, they got to jump on us, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so it's like I felt kind of sorry. Older I got and looked back on it, that if those astronauts understood that this was like a political gain as well. Like, we're going to get on that moon before the Russians do. We deserve it. That they would think, wait a minute, are they taking risks with our lives and all that? Because
those are pretty smart cookies.
Yeah.
The guys that got in those tin cans, those were some pretty smart cookies. So
yeah.
I don't think you're going to pull any wool over their eyes.
Well, how brave. Yeah, you're right. How brave they were. And then when you see the movies of it, you go like, how did we do that? I mean, how did that actually happen? Because of what we, everything was a projection and, mapping and all that. So it was just, and the poor monkeys that had to go before. That,
I followed it. I followed it from early on through the whole, the first, John Glenn going up and from that milestone on through the Gemini,
Yeah, it was a big.
I followed it real closely. Me and my brother.
I'm excited that NASA is talking about and putting out press releases and all that about us restarting some of the programs that never got, didn't get finished, and that, some new projects that may come up. And that would be, boy, what a shot in the arm it would be for Clear Lake City. But how fun that would be. Now, let me take you to, okay, that was in when we
shot off that it was a private enterprise capsule going to the space station, and that was privately done. And the freaky thing about that was that the first stage re-landed. I couldn't figure out what I was watching, because I've seen, like I said, I've been watching the space things from day one, and to see this part of the spacecraft that usually just drops in the ocean,
right,
and
right.
That son of a gun came back and landed.
Yes, in that
like a spaceship re-landing on Earth. and when I was watching, I was thinking, what am I watching? I just saw the damn thing take off.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever been to Washington and went through the Smithsonian Institute or any of that stuff. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Well, then you go and you see the space part of it, and you see those, we saw the capsules that went up into the space and came back down in the water, and see how, that in that the film that they used on that was just like, it looked like tin foil. And I'm like, wait a minute, the stuff that was on there, it looked so flimsy. It was like, how could they do that? But it was a fascinating time. We got to see the first thing that happened and the growth of that. But then the tragic time, I was just going to ask you, do you remember where you were when you found out that Kennedy had been shot?
Yeah, I was sitting in the front row, the front desk on the second row at Cathedral School in Covington, Kentucky, and the priest walked in and said that we got a nun as a teacher, You got a priest walking in, about to tell us that the first Catholic
Oh, that's right. Oh, yes.
president just been killed, and it was just like, oh man.
Well,
it was a double whammy. Yeah, yes, I do remember the exact spot. Yep.
well, I think that was, it's tragic and, shattering to us, because in the innocence I think that we had, that nothing like that would ever happen to us, or like a president or anything like that. The last thing, and you think, wait a minute, we've had other presidents assassinated, but we didn't think anything could happen to the Kennedys because we thought they were so perfect. And
there was the age of Camelot,
it was. It really was.
It was the real thing, because you had the beautiful wife, and you had the young kids, and you had the handsome dad, the war hero.
Right.
And he had it all.
He had perfect.
Plus,
and we loved it. And they were very rich. They were austere and all that stuff, but we didn't care. It was just great. We were so proud to have them representing us, and that kind of thing. So it was that was an amazing time, and a very sad time. And then it seemed like every other week we were hearing somebody had been killed. Then it was Robert Kennedy. It was Martin Luther King, and you just felt like, what's going on with this world? It's crazy. Do you remember where you were when you heard those things that happened?
Oh, yeah, kind of, not as sharply as as Kennedy,
right?
But
it didn't.
I remember walking in from church that same weekend when that occurred. Coming back from church, which was real sad and everything. We walked in, and there's the TV's on, and we're about to see Lee Harvey Oswald come down.
Yes.
And leave. And boy, he left. All right.
Oh, I remember that too.
I remember walking up to the TV, sitting down, and going, "Holy mackerel!" And Ruby jumps out and kills him.
Yes.
It was beyond comprehension. You're sitting there watching this thing happen. It's like Abraham having a TV at the Lincoln assassination, or something like.
Right.
Or John Wilkes Booth when he was caught in the barn, and having a TV camera there.
That's what the big jump in technology for us, being able to have TV all day long, that was interesting. And then to have this stuff on there all day long, and it really started hitting you that, wow, we got to see this happen live, because I was there too, and I didn't know what had happened. Like, there was a scuffle, and then the shot, and you didn't know, somebody else is dead. Well, what's cool.
Those cops didn't even have a chance to do anything.
No.
I mean, it was just instantaneous, and you can see the famous pictures of that incident, and the cops are just, their eyes are as big as saucers, and they haven't made a move to stop him. So there was no time. It was like boom, boom, and it was done.
Some of those guys that were there covering that worked at Channel 13 when I was there, and they talked about what that was. That, when he got shot, and they called the ambulance to come up, he got on top of the ambulance and had his camera turned downward so that he could get a shot of him it was just strange stuff.
Wow.
And that what they didn't understand even what they were witnessing. It was going so fast, and there was so much happening. And because the way it was handled, I mean, imagine the way it was handled then and what it would be like now. Because they brought him out in broad daylight, and everything. Everybody knew what was coming, and there was they weren't trying to keep it a secret at all. But anyway, okay, well, I got to go to a break, and we'll be right back, and we're going to go further into the 60s with Dennis O'Connor. Don't go away. You're listening to the Cindy Cochran Show. We'll be right back.
All right.
Hi, this is Cindy Cochran, and just want to thank you for listening. And remember, I'm live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., and you can interact with the show through my Facebook page, The Cindy Cochran Show. It's real reality radio. Hey, give your ears a treat.
And we're back on the Cindy Cochran Show. Thank you so much for joining us. We're talking about the 60s. We're going back in time. And this is the reason why we're talking about the 60s, I'll tell you. Friday, I have with me Kathy Sir, or Selman. I knew her as Kathy Selman. Her name is Kathy Sir. And she has put together the last few, I guess, Milby High School reunions. I don't know how long she's been doing this, but this is the 50th one. And, of course, I graduated in 1967, so I get to go to this one. It's the 50th. I never believed I would be at the 50th high school reunion at Milby High School. I can't wait. It's going to be so weird to see everybody and hopefully recognize everybody. I told them yesterday, I was so bad at school. When I would come back from the summer break, I couldn't remember people's names. I couldn't remember teachers' names or anything. I was just waiting for somebody to call out their name, or I couldn't remember names. So I used to have to get the annual out, and I started looking before we went back. It's not that I don't know. I just didn't want to think about school at all. So anyway, we're going to have a 50-year reunion, and of course that was during the 60s, and I just want to go back and kind of relive that a little bit. And then Thursday, Don Wilson is going to be on with us, and he is my Elvis connection, and I love this guy. He is so great, and he has introduced us to a lot of people that were friends to Elvis and had them on, and he is just a world of information about what happened during that time. Now, he's younger, a lot younger than I am, but because of Elvis, I think the connection to the 60s was strong, and so he understands a lot of the 60s and 70s as well. But I'm excited to have him on again and just relive some of those times that he understands from his angle. And then Friday we'll talk about the reunion and what's going to happen at our 50th reunion. So that's why we're kind of doing a 60s walk back and see what's going on. I have with me, of course, Dennis O'Connor, the voice of the Cindy Cochran Show, and he is old enough to remember the 60s. And so,
am I on?
Yes, you're on. I have to. You're always by this time texting me, "Shut up and let the guests talk." So here I am, and here you are.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, so
at the half hour, a little past the half hour mark.
Yes, and
are you running out of words? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so I need you to take it up. No, okay, so let's move on to some happy stuff during the 60s and try and remember some of those things, because a lot of, it seems like, angry and terrible things happened during the 60s, but there was fun. There was fun stuff that happened. And like your favorite type of music in the 60s was performed by who?
It depended on the era, but mostly the Beatles. Mm-hmm. The Beatles were pretty much took it out there, and I hit that road and never looked back.
Yeah.
And that led into the marriage out there in the West Coast, in San Francisco, particularly, and the sound that was going on out there. That was very, very inspired by the Beatles a lot, and yet the Beatles were inspired by old bluesmen from the United States. So it was neatly cyclical the way that was happening. But the Beatles were just so different and cool, and they had the hair, and they didn't care, And
that was so funny, because that really made an impact on us. And people, everybody started trying to have their hair look like that, and it just looked like the old.
You bet. Instantly, I was there.
And what's funny is it looked like the old timey, where people just put the bowl on the head and cut around the bowl, and that was the haircut. And that was the cool deal during the 60s. But the music that, of course, I was total Beatle baby. I loved the Beatles so much. I knew everything about them. I even had
still do.
I even had a group called the Beatlettes, and so
cool.
We all, I was. I played Ringo because I love the drums, and then my friend was John, and so we cross-dressed. We were so ahead of our time, and looked like them, and we just lip sync their songs and just air band with them, and I love them. But see, Elvis was such a big influence. Elvis was such a big influence because my sister was older than I was. She's about 6 years older than I was. And so during that time, it was all Elvis, 50s and 60s. We just listened to Elvis. And then, boy, when the Beatles came out, I felt like I own this group. This is my group. This is my time.
Yeah.
And I love them.
That pretty much put a damper on the Elvis in my listening. That's for sure. I'm like you. I came up with the old Beatles, the old beatnik crap, and the
yes.
Okay, there I go cussing. I'm sitting in my bedroom.
Okay.
I don't have many filters here, so.
That's right. I'm not here looking at you saying, "Shut up! Don't talk like that."
I'll try not to.
Okay. No, you're doing real well.
I've been trying very hard.
I know, and I'm so proud of you. You're doing great, Dennis. But the songs that were
the music, that was a very big riff there. I think when the Beatles hit and that whole thing blew up, and it pushed Elvis to the side. And in the circles that I ran in, Elvis was not a big deal.
No, you're right. That he did lose a lot during that time, and he said, this is what we talked to Don Wilson about that during that time. What the Beatles meant in coming in, and there were articles written that he made statements, and we'll find out if this is true or not, that he felt like, okay, they're gonna, they're taking over, and nobody's gonna want to listen to me anymore. And of course, that wasn't true. He had too big of a following, and he'd been too established not to be able to. And when he came back in the 70s, really strong, and he started, he was making movies before that, but then when he did...
Well, you just said it came back.
Yeah, he did. He made a big comeback. Yeah.
Came back.
That's right. That's right.
That was
now, here's
the Beatles booted him, basically, and that whole, whole subculture that existed, and that was all the music I was listening to, pretty much you take the Beatles and then you throw in, go watch Woodstock.
Oh,
go watch Woodstock and you'll see all the music I was listening to.
That's what I'm saying. If anybody meets you, first thing they would say, were you at Woodstock? Dennis just has the air about him that he loved Janis Joplin and all those guys. It was funny because Janis, grew up, close to here. She was in Texas. So she did have that feel, but she kind of scared me because I thought, good grief, this girl is weird. Listen to this.
It was a good kind of scared as far as I was concerned.
I'm sure. This is what they're saying. If you Google the top record singles in the 60s, this must be like early 60s, like Big Girls Don't Cry from the Four Seasons, Duke of Earl, Good Luck Charm by Elvis, Hey Baby, I Can't Stop Loving You, Ray Charles, Peppermint Twist, Joey D,
love them all.
Roses Are Red, Sheila and Sherry, Four Seasons again.
I can hear every one of them. I can hear the music as you name them.
I know, and Soldier Boy.
The song, the radio turn on in my head and
That's exactly.
Sing, Sherry, Sherry, baby.
That's exactly right. I'm telling you, it's so interesting that when you hear a song that you've heard whenever you were younger, and it takes you right back there, and everything, the smell, the whatever's going on, that you feel it. The popular movies they state were Cape Fear, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, West Side Story, Lawrence of Arabia, The Miracle Worker, and To Kill a Mockingbird.
West Side Story.
Yes, that was...
Okay, go ahead.
Even at that age, you're impressionable. But these tough guys in this movie all of a sudden start snapping and singing and twirling and stuff. It didn't make sense to me at all. I was like, wait a minute, you're confusing me.
It was a revelation to me. I still, it's my favorite, and I don't like musicals really that much.
I don't either.
Man, it's way up there on my things of fun things to listen to.
To listen to. Yeah. I love the music from that. But I just didn't like people breaking into song when it was unnecessary. Like when Elvis Presley would do movies, and All of a sudden
well,
they
those
start
were-
singing. I'm like, what? Why are you doing that?
Elvises were campy. They were just campy.
I just get well, even with Walt Disney movies, they start singing. I'd get up and go get the hot dog and the
Oh,
popcorn
geez.
and the candy because it's
Yeah. That's
boring
kind
to me.
of what I feel about music. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of musicals. If it doesn't, it's got to keep the plot going.
Right.
Just show some character change.
Right.
Show something going on.
Exactly.
And to do that, I have to be able to understand what the heck they're singing.
True. That's a good point. Now here's the popular television.
And sometimes.
Here's the
sometimes
popular
I use
television
the
shows. Dennis and I will just talk over each other, just like the real TV
Yeah,
anchors
just like
do.
we would, yeah.
And okay, popular television shows. The Beverly Hillbillies debuts
Oh,
in the
my.
60s. ABC airs its first color TV series, The Jetsons. McHale Navy debuts. Match Game. Johnny Carson hosts his first show. He hosted until 1992. And I was
my
one of those
goodness.
episodes. Okay, the Andy Williams Show, The Dick Van Dyke Show, My Three Sons, Mr. Ed. Mr. Ed is on the Jack Parr
Mr.
Show.
Ed. A horse is a horse, of course, of course.
That's perfect. Tell It to Groucho, the Alfred Hitchcock Show. Ends.
Yeah.
And then The Father Knows Best ends during the 60s. Lucy Show
Oh,
premieres.
my goodness.
Osmond
Yeah.
Brother debuts on the Andy Williams Show. So the popular singers, though, of the 60s were the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Chubby Checker, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, Neil Sedaka, Roy Orbison, and Shirley Bassey. So in all that, do you feel like you were more underground? You were
Yeah, I was more underground. When you said you had me at Dylan, and then the rest of them were just other than the ones that came before the mid '60s, let's say, are lovely things that I just enjoyed listening to on the radio. But when you hit Dylan and you hit the Beatles, that's a whole cultural change.
Yes.
Right there. That's a whole mouthful. All you have to do is say those two.
See, there you go.
And that's just a mouthful. And I enjoy all the music today. I enjoy everything Bob's ever done. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the boy.
Oh yeah, His songs do remind you of that. But at that time, we didn't have so much instant information about everybody. Everybody usually knew everything that was going on with the stars, and now they do. Now they know everything because they see them all the time.
I can't imagine. I think of that sometimes. Like, wow, what if we had this technology, and back then, and and we'd drop some acid and smoke a lot of pot, and man, look at all this stuff on TV.
Yeah, it's probably. Yeah, you may have been seeing things outside of you were so ahead of your time at that point. But there were notable events that we've gone over some of the events that happened during the 60s, but like this is what always interests me. I love to go back and find out, like during that time, did we understand that the median family income was $6,000 per year? I think that's pretty high, but that's $6,000 a year. The first Walmart opened by Sam Walton in Arkansas.
Wally World.
Can you imagine? That's when that first opened, and the medium
McDonald's.
hourly wage. Wait, medium hourly wage was $1.25. Now,
Oh God.
can you imagine at that point someone telling those guys that were working for $1.25 saying, "One day it'll be $15 an hour"?
Yeah.
And they go,
It'll be
$15 an
$15
hour.
an hour, and you still won't be able to make a living. You still won't be able to pay your bills.
And only 90% of Americans own a television set. That's pretty good. And ABC begins broadcasting in color. 2 dances.
Yeah.
The mashed potato and the Watusi. Was the. Did you do a lot of dancing?
I did a fair share of dancing. Yeah, I did a fair share of dancing. I can. As soon as you said mashed potato and Watusi, I knew exactly what. I was seeing them go-go girls wiggle.
Oh, that's right.
As soon as you say those 2 words, I can picture it in my head. I'm sure I tried it, and I still try it today. I'm an old deadhead, so when I dance at a concert, and I dance at almost every concert I go to.
I imagine you do. I bet
unless
people
they pull me down. You have to. I have been almost thrown out of concerts by police, And they'd say, "Sir, please sit down."
And
I'd
put
say,
your clothes
"I
back
can't."
on. No.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be naked on that thing. That's one thing I didn't do. Is
I'm
be
so
naked.
proud of you. Do you remember the
I
oral?
did not.
Do you remember the oral polio vaccine that all of us had to take?
Yeah, we went over to St. Augustine's Church. That was another right at Mass time. We went to church at our place, and then we went across town to get this sugar cube.
Yeah, the sugar cube. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the easiest thing I ever did.
Right. And then you had to take the vaccine, the shot that you would take, and then it would create this, scab, and then you're like good to go for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah. I've got those old
wounds of the 60s. That's really 50s, probably.
Some of the only wounds I have. I don't do tattoos, so.
And the poor people. The poor people where it didn't take. If it didn't take, it would leave this horrible scar on you. But okay, so
yeah.
So the Academy Award Best Picture during that time was for Lawrence of Arabia. Gregory Peck, though, won Best Actor, Kill a Mockingbird, of course, and for The Miracle Worker and Bancroft. The Miracle Worker just, that's where I took up the sign language, fever. I went like, I want to learn how to do that. That was so impactful.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
I'll bet it was. I'll bet that really blew you away because I know your deep involvement with signing.
Right.
And,
so that
which you need to talk more about. Not right now, but you need to talk more about that on your radio program.
We do. We do need to do that. And since you can see me now on YouTube, I could be signing to some of my friends and talking to them as well. So we'll develop that as it goes along.
Yeah,
Marilyn.
Yeah. I thought you should have somebody behind you because we talked about that before. But just the video thing has added a whole new angle to your little game you're playing down there.
I know. It's so exciting. People can actually see the show as well as hear. And sometimes they need to because some of the looks people get on their face when I ask them questions. But Marilyn Monroe died during the 60s, and that was a big deal. She was found dead, and we all know all the conspiracies. Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, my goodness gracious,
Yeah,
yes.
so all the conspiracy theories that went on, that was the most interesting thing to watch. But
the Kennedys, the whole Kennedy, it was just conspiracy after conspiracy.
Oh, man.
As far as I'm concerned. And I stopped trusting politicians.
Anybody,
right then and there. I really did. I stopped trusting anything to do with a government. A politician was the dirtiest low of the dirt, as far as I was concerned.
Right. That was a huge eye opener. I want to.
Activist.
I want to tell you this that by a vote of 6-1, the U.S. Supreme Court bans prayer in public schools in the 60s. And we've gone downhill ever since. Okay. Also, the first Kmart department store opens. So Walmart and Kmart both.
I went through the 60s in Catholic schools, and nobody was going to tell us not to pray.
Amen. Amen. That's right. That's right.
No,
I just dare you.
You would not be welcome if you talked about not praying in Catholic school. Man, we went to mass across the street in this gigantic cathedral, on a regular basis, and we didn't know much about praying back then as far as there being a ban on it.
Yeah.
That's what the Protestants were doing.
Yeah.
As far as we were concerned.
Things up. Okay, now the last thing I have to tell you, this may interest you. Because it was done in Houston. The first use of silicone breast implants by Houston plastic surgeons happened in the 60s. In the 60s. I just want to let you know that. Okay, Dennis, we're just about out of time. I've got 1 minute to get out of here.
You just blew my mind on that breast implantation
Okay,
thing.
I just want you to think about that.
I was doing fine until you started talking about that.
Okay, well, I just wanted something to remember this by. But thank you so much for joining me.
I'm surprised we didn't get into the hippie aspect of it that much.
No,
and that was what the 60s
so
led
much.
into, and then it pushed into the 70s.
Right. There's
that
so
whole
much.
hippie thing.
That's what I was saying. There's so much that happened. I couldn't believe it. But we covered a lot of stuff, and it's brought up a lot of memories for me as well. And so, and then
you talked about the power of the TV.
Yeah,
in the video, the war was televised. The Vietnam War was televised, and that's what did it in.
That's right.
And they're not televising the war right now, and then they're able. If we saw what was happening in Afghanistan right now, all the time, every night, somebody would just say, "This is ridiculous. This is stupid."
Yeah,
Where are we going here? Where are we going?
What's happening?
You know?
Yeah. So we have
the same way
impact.
we did in Vietnam.
Right.
But the war was televised.
And imagine
big difference.
if Nixon would have been able to tweet things out. No, I'm not going to get into that. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So no, I got to go. He's already. Doing the finger winding it up. Hurry up, shut up.
I can ignore him. You can just hang up on me anytime you want.
Now he's going to play the music in my ear. Okay, all right, Cindy. Listen, guys, thank you so much for listening. And Dennis O'Connor, we just thank you so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate you. And you can always hear Dennis on the Cindy Cochran Show. Okay, bye-bye. We'll see you.
Breaking up.
I know it is. It is. Listen.
I'm shrinking.
Join me tomorrow, 10 o'clock, every morning, 10 a.m. to 11. Okay, we will see you tomorrow. You guys have a great day. It's beautiful outside here. Anyway, the Cindy Cochran Show, Real Reality Radio.
Thanks for checking out this recording from Lone Star Community Radio. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station and broadcasted live from Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. Interested in sponsoring this show, being a guest, hosting your own show? Then please visit us online at irlonestar.com and check out the Contact Us page. We want to say thank you to our studio supporters. Our traffic sponsor, Conroe Americana Music Festival at conroeamericanamusicfestival.com. For more information about the show, please check out the information below in the description.